Following the completion of round 2 of the Rugby World Cup, I'm going to be discussing 7 things in which I've learnt from this weekend's action. We've seen some really good games this weekend, including a massive blowout between South Africa and Romania, but also some really good tight contests between Wales and Fiji. So I'm going to start off with point number 1, which says there's a variety of quality amongst the Tier 2 nations. Now, when I hear the term Tier 2 nation, I have a rough idea of sort of the quality of rugby that I'm going to be watching. But in actual fact, we've seen some really good performances from Tier 2 nations, like Uruguay against France and Portugal against Wales. We've also seen some really poor performances, such as Romania against South Africa. So that shows us that between those teams, there's massive differences in quality of performance. So we can't just presume all Tier 2 nations are of the rough same quality. Point number 2, France's second team are rusty. Now, as I've just mentioned, Uruguay put on a really good performance against France. And there was a point in it at one stage in the second half in which I'm sure the French were on the edge of their seats and getting a little bit sweaty. But yeah, France's second team did struggle. And in a Rugby World Cup, which requires depth amongst most positions, obviously to deal with injuries and sort of selection problems, France will be slightly concerned about that. I'm sure they'll fix certain things. But yeah, if they were to get injuries in key positions, the players coming in potentially aren't on the best of form, which could hurt them. But I'm not sure it'll make too much of a difference to France going into the knockout stages, but it's something to just think about. Point number 3, Wales are tough but don't win easy. Now, Wales, I believe in most of their games will be incredibly tough to beat, but when they do win, they don't tend to win easy. They left it really, really late on to beat Fiji. Fiji obviously just fumbled the ball just before the line, so Wales didn't see out that game and put it to bed when they really could have, with being sort of 17 points up or whatever it was with sort of 10 minutes to go. But they do manage to grind out tough games. Against Georgia, it wasn't Georgia, was it? It was Portugal. Look, they didn't make that easy either. They waited to the 80th minute to score their vital bonus point try, which in Pool C that could mean an absolute fortune. With the potential to Australia for beating Wales this weekend, that would leave all of the big teams on one loss, and it will come down to things like that bonus point against Portugal. So look, yeah, Wales are tough to beat but don't win easy. Point number 4, Ireland are starting to click. Now, Ireland against Tonga, I was expecting to be sort of a game in which Ireland win by sort of 20 to 30 points, with it being close at half time and then the Irish pull away in the second half. That wasn't the case. The Irish pulled away in both halves. It started off with sort of a penalty each, I believe 3-3, which was sort of 15 minutes, but after that it really started to click, with lots of tries being scored, 4 tries in the first half and 4 tries in the second, I think it was, from Ireland. And they're really starting to gel now, which is ultimately derived from the continuity in selection. Andy Farrell has the opportunity to bring wholesale changes in for games in which they're expected to win against Tonga, but he chooses to keep the team the same and build the continuity and sort of building momentum. So that's one way of doing it. You're risking injuries, but it's working for Ireland. Point number 5, watch out for Samoa. Now, with England obviously facing Samoa in their pool, it's going to be a game in which I'm a little bit nervous for, because I think the Samoans are really, really doing well. I believe they beat Chile this weekend, which they look impressive doing so. Now, the reason that I'm a little bit nervous for Samoa, and I think they could really spring some problems amongst some big teams, is the fact that they've now started to bring in some sort of quality set piece, but also goal kicking. Now, Lealiifano, playing for Australia in the last World Cup, being their top point scorer, in fact, in the last World Cup, has now transitioned over to Samoa with the eligibility changes, and obviously Samoa are benefiting from that massively. They've now got real quality in that team. Now, look, I've mentioned Lealiifano, they've got Theo McFarland in the second row, and some really big props also, in which you've got good experience now. I think it's Charlie Faumuina, if I'm not mistaken. So look, they've got some real big names in that squad now, and if they manage to gel, they'll be really, really tough to beat. And especially with Lealiifano, with the range on his boot, being able to kick consistently as sort of an 80% plus kicker, it's a real dangerous threat for Samoa. Number 6, Fiji aren't just Flair. Now, we always associate Fiji with sort of Fijian flair in the same way we would with the France and the French flair. But Fiji have shown that they can win games without sort of the expansive and high-scoring matches. Now, Fiji only scored one try in that game against Australia, which came in the second half via an intercept. So, look, that isn't really the Fiji way, but they managed to kick their penalties. I think it was 4 or 5 penalties they kicked, which sent them on their way to victory. Now, it was really, really good from the Fijian coaching staff to swap Frank Lamani out for the replacement scrum half who could kick so well. Now, Frank Lamani might have the edge around the park, but if you're not kicking your goals, that can be really problematic. They brought in a brilliant kicker who kicked sort of all of his kicks, I believe, which sent Fiji on their way to winning. So Fiji win with only conceding a couple tries and only scoring one of their own, which shows that they're not just Flair and they can defend, which Lavani Bottia really showed that he can get over the ball and contributed to the Fijian defence. Number 7, and the most important point on this board, this is not what we learnt, this is a simple fact. Joe Marler has more assists than Owen Farrell. Jokes aside, Joe Marler, I mean, what a moment of madness that was. The header in which he's claiming, which wasn't a header, the most jammy try in Rugby World Cup history, with the drop of the ball pretty much from Will Stewart, slid through his hands like a greasy bar of soap, bounced off the mohawk of Marler, and then Courtney Lord scores. You couldn't write this stuff, an absolute joke. But look, it didn't go against any rules, so it counted. And jokes aside, we're looking forward to having Owen Farrell back in the next round of the World Cup. I personally think Steve Borthwick should start him, see how Owen Farrell gets on, and then sort of judge the performances of Farrell and then Ford, and then just see what you think fits. If Farrell's not firing, stick with Ford. But if Farrell lights up the field and really brings something to the England attack, which is lacking, then you go with Farrell. So look, those are my 7 points. More of 6 points and then one sort of bonus weird Joe Marler fact. But let me know what your thoughts are on these 7 things we've learnt. And as always, I'll get back to every single comment. But thank you very much for watching.